Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Quick little video today. I want to talk about putting together a hunting rifle. Specifically, this rifle right here. This is a Marlin 336 that I've been setting up over the last month or so and getting it set up as a hunting rifle. Now, I originally bought this rifle just out of nostalgia. I hadn't had a lever action rifle in over 10 years when I bought this thing about a year and a half ago. And I used to love shooting lever actions when I was a kid. And I just hadn't had one in so long, and there's just really something kind of just cowboy cool about these things, and I really wanted one, so I saw it and I picked it up, paid about 350 bucks for it out the door at my local gun shop, and I never really intended on setting it up as a hunting rifle. But as hunting season came along this year, I decided, you know what, this is what I'm going to turn into my kind of go-to hunting rifle. Now, there are a couple downsides about turning a 30-30 or a lever action into a hunting rifle. Namely, the main thing is going to be range. When you compare 30-30 to 308 or 270 or 30-06 or whatever it is, really something like this, which is just 150 grain, you're really probably looking at a max range that you're going to want to take that round out to is probably about 200 yards. At 200 yards on something like 150 grain, you're really talking about, you're only going to have about a 6 or 7 inch drop on your trajectory. You're still getting good velocity. You're going to put down whatever you're aiming at that distance. So, but really, again, you compare it to other calibers that can go out to 500, 600 yards, whatever it is, or further, like 30-06 and 308. There is a downside to this particular caliber, but it's still just a really good gun. I mean, this is kind of like the original deer rifle back in the day. And for most of us out there, 200 yards is easily, within what you're going to be, using your rifle at. You're not really, for the most of us, going to be going out much past that, depending on where you're at. I'm looking at white-tailed deer and hog and that kind of thing down here in South Texas. I'm not going to be getting, probably more than 100, 150 yards away. So having something that can reach out to 200 yards is pretty easy. Now, as far as what I did to this when I got it, it was just a regular 336, and I put a little bit of time and effort into it. First off, we got a Quake Sling, which is just a really nice kind of tacky, sticky sling. These things will hang on you no matter if you're wet, what clothes you're wearing, doesn't matter. And that's why I like these slings. I got a couple of these on a couple of different rifles. Got a little saddle here, which is just a cheap Ace, I think, elastic saddle. Just holds a few extra rounds. Always something good to have a few extra rounds easily accessible on you. Then we've got a loopholed rail here, which I chose the loophole because it extends the rail out past the receiver, which allows me to put this scope ring further up to kind of push the scope up a little bit further, so that way I don't, my eye relief is more in line with what it would normally be and what I prefer it to be, and that tends to be a problem on some of these lever action rifles. You almost want to set them up as a scout rifle with a long eye relief scope and have the scope up here, because you really get your face like right up here on the gun, and if you got that scope sticking back here, kind of a pain. So I recommend going with something that's going to let you do that if this is something you're looking at doing. Then we've got the Weaver scope rings, which are just the 4-hole scope rings. I was looking for the 6-hole scope rings, couldn't find them, but the 4 holes should do just fine. And of course, the scope we've got here is a Weaver Caspa series. This is a 3-12 by 50, which really is overkill for this rifle. It's a lot of scope for this rifle, but I just fell in love with the scope. I saw the scope. It was a choice between this and a Nikon Pro Staff BDC, and this one was just a better scope all around. I was just really happy with it, and so I jumped on it. Plus, it was a little bit cheaper than the Nikon too, so why not? And then last but certainly not least, I got the little, I think it's a Grove Tech Industries or Grove Industries. This is just a hammer extension, so that way you can get to the hammer without having to reach up under the scope. It just basically kicks the hammer out just a little bit so you can easily get to it to cock the rifle or decock it or whatever you want to do. Nice little add-on there. Those things are only like 10 bucks on eBay. Total between the scope, the rings, the rail, the sling, the saddle, the hammer extension, really only about 200 to 250 bucks, I believe, extra on what I paid for this, because this scope was actually pretty inexpensive. It was only about 140 bucks out the door at Academy, which is really cheap for a good scope. And so everything total, I mean, I've got maybe 600 bucks in this rifle. Now that's pretty inexpensive when you're talking about having a scope and a rail and everything else on a hunting rifle. A lot of people out there spend, once they put a good scope on their rifle, they spend $800, $1,000, maybe even $1,500 on a good hunting rifle. Now again, you know, those are really good rifles, and 30-30 doesn't have the range of some of those other calibers. But if you're looking at putting together a good, solid hunting rifle on a budget, and you can piece one together, I mean, these Marlin 30s, you know, these 336s are pretty inexpensive and pretty easy to find. This is definitely a good option for most people out there, depending on what you're going to be hunting for. So anyway, that's it, guys. Appreciate you watching. Any questions or comments or anything like that, send them my way, and we will talk to you later. Thanks.